The desert wind howled like a lost soul through the canyon. Cowboy Luke Tanner rode hard beneath the sinking sun, dust kicking up from his horse's hooves. He had been chasing 3 outlaws for days, the same men who had burned down a trader's wagon and taken something precious with them. An Apache girl, no older than 20, bound and terrified. When he found their camp, the firelight flickered against the rocks. The outlaws were laughing, drunk on whiskey, never seeing the shadow that crept closer. Luke's revolver gleamed once, twice. 2 gunshots echoed through the canyon. The third man stumbled out, knife in hand, but Luke was faster. The desert fell silent again, save for the horse's restless snort and the faint sound of a girl crying. He found her tied to a fallen branch, wrists bruised, long dark hair tangled with sand. She flinched when he approached. "It's all right," he said quietly. "You're safe now." Her eyes darted up, amber, fierce despite the tears. She whispered something in Apache he couldn't understand, then repeated it softly in broken English. "You kill them?" He nodded once. "They won't hurt anyone again." She stared at him a long moment, trembling. Then, to his surprise, she pressed her forehead to his hand and murmured something sacred, ancient, a word that sounded like a promise. Luke didn't understand, but he helped her onto his horse, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "Where's your village?" he asked. She looked at the horizon and shook her head. "Gone. They kill all." Luke's chest tightened. He'd seen too much death out here, but this was worse. He guided the horse toward his ranch, the night settling around them like a blanket. Hours later, under the starlit sky, they reached his small cabin. He lit the lantern, the glow chasing away the darkness. She stood near the doorway, barefoot, silent. Luke turned to her. "You can rest here tonight. You'll be safe." But she didn't move. Her gaze stayed on him, unreadable, deep as the desert night. Then she said something that froze him in place. "You saved my life. Now are you my husband?" Luke blinked. "You're what?" She took a step forward, voice firm though her hands still shook. "In my tribe. If man kills for woman, he belonged to her. She belonged to him. Sacred law." Luke stared, lost for words. He wanted to explain that wasn't how things worked, not out here, not in his world. But something in her eyes stopped him. There was no fear, only faith, the kind born from old traditions and unbreakable spirit. He exhaled slowly. "Listen, miss, I just did what any decent man would have done. You don't owe me anything." But she shook her head, fierce and certain. "I not owe. Spirit choose. You killed to save me. Now we won." Luke didn't know what to say. The firelight flickered across her face, and for the first time he saw not just the frightened girl from the canyon, but a woman who had lost everything, standing on the edge of a new fate. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the sound of wind outside and the crackle of burning wood. Finally, Luke said quietly, "All right, you can stay as long as you need." But she smiled, a small, mysterious smile. "I stay forever." And as the desert night deepened, Luke Tanner began to realize he hadn't just saved her life. He'd stepped into a bond older than the West itself. The morning light spilled over the hills, warm and gold, touching everything with calm. Luke Tanner stood outside his cabin, sipping coffee as the sun climbed higher. Behind him, through the open window, the Apache girl was humming softly. A low, beautiful sound that drifted through the cool air like a prayer. Her name was Ayana. He had learned it at dawn, when she'd woken from her first peaceful sleep in days. She'd thanked him quietly, helped herself to fetch water, and then insisted on tending to the fire before he could even stop her. For someone who had survived such horror, she carried herself with quiet pride. Luke couldn't help watching her, the way she moved. The way her eyes never lingered too long, as if always searching the horizon for danger. When he finally said, "You can stay here till you're ready to move on," Ayana turned, her expression unreadable. "Move on," she repeated. "Where I go now. My people gone. I have no place, except here." Her voice softened. With you. Luke sighed. He wanted to argue, to say he wasn't the kind of man to settle down, that he wasn't ready for anything resembling a wife, but she stood there so calm, so certain, that the words never came. He looked away. I'm just a ranch hand with a few cattle and a roof that leaks, he said. You deserve better than that. Ayana smiled faintly. Better is not always safer. You saved me. You fight for me. Spirit see. That enough. Before Luke could reply, the distant thunder of hooves echoed through the valley. He stiffened, setting his cup down. Ayana's face went pale. They come, she whispered. Luke's hand went to his revolver. Who? Warriors, she said, her eyes scanning the ridge. My tribe's men. They find me. They think I betray them. Or worse. Dust rose in the distance. 3 riders painted with streaks of red and black. Luke cursed under his breath. Get inside, he ordered, but Ayana stood her ground. If I hide, they kill you. They must see I'm safe. Luke shook his head. I'm not letting them hurt you. She met his eyes, steady and fearless. If you fight them, they take it as war. You must let me speak. The riders stopped just outside the fence, dismounting with the grace of hunters. The tallest one, likely their leader, called out in a rough English accent, White man! You have our woman. Luke took a step forward. She ain't your property. The warrior's eyes narrowed. She is of our blood. You kill for her. That means you take her without our word. It is law. She is bound to you. But the chief did not approve. Now she must return. Ayana stepped between them, raising her hand. I not prisoner, she said, voice shaking slightly. He saved me. He my husband now. The warriors exchanged low murmurs in Apache. The leader's gaze hardened. Then he must prove himself. Luke frowned. Prove myself? To who? To the tribe, the warrior said coldly. If you wish to keep her, you face the test. Luke's hand tightened around his belt. And if I refuse? Then we take her. The spirits will decide her fate. Ayana turned quickly, gripping his arm. Luke, please, don't fight them with guns. Fight them with honor. Show them your heart. He stared into her eyes, dark, steady, full of fire. For reasons he couldn't name, he nodded. Tell me what I need to do. The warrior pointed toward the canyon trail. Tomorrow, when the sun rises, you meet us there. You prove you can protect what you claim. When they rode away, Ayana looked at him with tears in her eyes. I didn't want this, she whispered. But they will not stop. It is our way. Luke wiped the dust from his hands. Then I'll ride out in the morning, he said quietly. Not for pride, not for the tribe, for you. Ayana stepped closer. Her voice trembled. You fight, you may die. Luke met her gaze, his tone calm and sure. Then it'll be the first thing in a long time worth dying for. The desert wind swept through the fields again, warm and dry. But between them, something deeper took root, trust, courage, and the quiet beginnings of love. The sun was still low when Luke Tanner saddled his horse. Ayana stood by the doorway, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. The morning wind carried the scent of sage and dust. Don't do this, she whispered. Luke gave her a faint smile. You said it yourself. It's your people's way. If I want them to see I mean no harm, I gotta face them. Ayana reached out, fingers trembling as she touched his hand. If you fall, I will never forgive myself. He squeezed her hand gently. Then I better make sure I don't fall. The Canyon of Spirits. By mid-morning, Luke rode into the narrow canyon. The Apache warriors were already there, silent, waiting. The leader from yesterday, Taza, stood on a ridge overlooking a small circle of stones. Behind him, 2 elders watched, faces carved with years of battle and loss. Taza pointed to the stones. You stand here, white man. This place judges truth. If your heart lies, the spirits will turn against you. Luke dismounted and stepped forward, boots crunching on gravel. He felt their eyes on him, measuring, testing, waiting. Taza spoke again. You claim the woman Ayana. You saved her life, but she is of our people. If your heart seeks to use her, you die here. If your heart is true, you live. Luke's jaw tightened. I didn't come here to claim anyone. She's free. She can stay or she can go. But I'll die before I let you hurt her again." The canyon went silent. Even the wind held its breath. One of the elders nodded slowly. "Words are easy. Show the spirit your truth." Taza lifted his spear and threw it at the ground between them. "Then fight, not to kill, but to endure." The trial, Neen. They circled each other like wolves. Taza moved first, fast and precise, his spear slicing the air. Luke dodged, caught the wooden shaft and rolled to the side, dust rising around them. The Apache warriors shouted encouragement in their tongue, but none interfered. The test was sacred, one heart against another. Taza struck again, this time catching Luke's shoulder. Blood welled instantly, but Luke didn't stop. He blocked the next blow, grabbed the spear's shaft and twisted. Both men fell into the dirt. The fight went on until Luke's arms shook from exhaustion. Finally, when Taza raised his weapon for a final strike, Luke dropped his guard. He spread his arms wide. "No more. You want my blood? Take it. But I won't fight a man who thinks I'm his enemy. I didn't come to destroy your people. I came to protect one of them." Taza froze. The canyon was silent again, only the sound of Luke's labored breathing. Then, slowly, the Apache warrior lowered his weapon. He turned to the elders. "This man fights with heart," he said quietly. "He spares when he could kill. His spirit is strong." The eldest nodded. "Then the spirits have seen. The test is over." After the dust settled, when Luke returned to the ranch, his shirt torn and blood drying on his arm, Ayana ran to meet him. She stopped just short of touching him, her eyes full of disbelief. "You live." He grinned faintly. "Guess your spirits decided to give me another day." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she finally threw her arms around him. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You are one of us now," Luke blinked. "What do you mean?" She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. "When you fight and spare life, the tribe binds you by spirit. They accept you as family, as husband." He laughed softly, half in relief, half in awe. "So I went to prove I didn't own you, and came back married." Ayana smiled through her tears. "In my people's way." "Yes," Luke's voice dropped low. "Well, guess I better build a bigger cabin then." The whisper of the desert weeks later. The valley had changed. The fields grew green again. The cattle thrived. And the nights were no longer silent. Laughter echoed from the porch. The sound of two souls who had found peace where once there was fear. Ayana sat beneath the stars, her head resting on Luke's shoulder. "You think your people ever understand our way?" she asked softly. He looked at her, the firelight flickering in his eyes. "Maybe not," he said. "But I don't need the world to understand us. Just you." The desert wind carried her quiet answer. "Then you already have everything."